Good afternoon. How are you today?
Just fine, sir. On this,
Excellent. You
what
had a
is
good weekend?
April? What is it? The day after April Fools?
Yes, indeed. And here we thought up in Canada that the April Fool's prank was going to be this thing called a carbon tax increase and our politicians getting a pay raise. But apparently we were the fools for believing that it was a joke.
Correct. It was a joke.
Still is a joke, but yeah. Anyway, that's enough about that bad stuff.
Yeah. Besides that, you should be pleased that you're contributing to the betterment of the planet. But
Hmm.
okay, because it's little bit of hocus pocus, and well, as you know, we decided that this particular episode is going to be called "Tolerable Dishonesty."
Yes. Yes. And I guess it really depends, like most things, what is your level of tolerance? And I'm finding that as I do more circles around the sun, my level of tolerance is becoming very, very short.
You brought up something. You said your travels around the sun. You can't come here to this part of the province, okay, or even to the little east of us here, because if you're going to go to Niagara, which is where the eclipse will go over,
Oh,
it's a national emergency that's been declared there. Okay, they're
well,
closing schools and shutting roads, and
I'm sure that
it's
probably part of this,
really pretty dangerous. This be very, very dangerous situation that's going to happen there.
I can understand that. And maybe that's why we had this new addition onto the carbon tax, because that'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Mhm. It'll help the migration problems of all people that don't have homes and food. And I know here in British Columbia, our provincial government also raised the carbon tax, but they were bringing in $3 billion a year with this tax. And I don't think that our carbon footprint has really been reduced.
No, that's a bit of dishonesty there, because if you could quantify how many tax dollars reduce carbon dioxide, then there would probably be a lot of people who'd voluntarily depart with their money to
Mhm.
save the planet.
Mhm.
But since we're not able to quantify that, your $3 billion is part of the tolerable dishonesty of the policy.
Well, that's right. And, not to belabor this point, but our illustrious premier here, in one hand, said that most British Columbians were in favor of putting on this tax to save the planet. But in the next breath, about three sentences later, said that all the money that was going into that was going in to fund road building, hospitals, education. It seemed to me to be just about everything other than carbon footprint renewal. Now, maybe I missed out something on the translation. I'm willing to admit that, but I'm still trying to
Was he
figure
speaking British Columbianese?
out. It could be. Maybe
Is that
that
kind of a
transponded
dialect?
on right.
Is that a dialect of English?
Well, can we say Kinglish? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Somebody might be offended.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
yeah, it will always offend somebody, because we live in the age of offended people.
yeah.
Everybody's offended about something.
Well, I'm finding it's becoming very easy to offend people without even trying. So,
It, if you agree, they're offended. If you disagree, they're offended. If you say nothing, they're offended. So you know,
yeah.
just I think ignoring these lunatics is really the best way to deal on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, well, ignoring a lot of things. Much like, I guess, when we talk about what we try to do here with BORDERPOL and look at migration issues here in Canada in particular, and I guess even somewhat to the south of us. ignoring the immigration problem seems to work very, very well for all the people that want to come in and establish themselves. So,
Well, you see, I'm getting cynical. Duh. So you bring in a couple of million people for whom there is no housing.
mhm,
Then you say, we have a housing crisis.
mhm.
Now, how did you create that? Who created the housing crisis? Well, it seems to me that bringing in a couple of million people who didn't have homes creates a housing crisis. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. We have solutions for the crisis we created that you should remember how it got created. So there's some tolerable dishonesty. Okay.
Well, that's
We
true. And the
we
fact that we
we
really,
broke it and you own it.
and we really didn't tell all these immigrants that they should be bringing in their own house building tools. So I guess that's tolerable on their part as well.
You see, and this is sorry for being cynical, but if you want to create a problem for which you will create a solution, for which you will become wealthy, or remain in power because you've come up with solutions to problems you've created, but you didn't tell us you created the problem. It's like the business of the carbon tax we started with is apparently the science of economics in Canada is if you put money in, you get more money out. Okay. So as you know, our illustrious government suggests with the carbon tax that 8 out of 10 Canadians, I don't know where those 8 live, because 2 of them somewhere else don't get nothing. But be that as it may, 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back than the government takes away. And this miracle only happens in Canada. This is an economic miracle. Now, I, through various secret channels, have discovered how this works.
Oh,
yes.
do
yes.
tell.
Now, as you know, this is partly a video and partly a podcast. So for our podcast listeners, we'll have to apologize because a lot of this is visual. But maybe, Bob, you can, kind of explain the machinery that we have been sent to us. This is called inflato. Okay, are you ready? Now, this is a visual. This is the magic inflato machine.
Yes.
Only available in Canada, you understand?
Yes, and for those people that can't see it, it kind of looks like a circular grater that is made of stainless steel.
Yes, high quality. It's a high quality item.
Mm-hmm. Open on one end and
yep,
sealed on the other.
Yep, because like a washing machine that cleans clothes, this cleans money. It's like a kind of a little laundromat right here. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, because this is only available in Canada, but our American friends will be watching this. We're going to show you how it works, okay? Because we have a lot of American viewers, so we're going to show. We take this piece of.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay.
This is
Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln on a fiver, okay? And you put Abe into
the machine.
Okay, inflato.
And for those that you can't see, you're doing a nice rotation.
Yep. Inflate.
Now, I guess, does it matter, Tom, whether you're going counterclockwise or clockwise on this?
Well, that's a good question. I could go this way.
Yes, okay, that's true.
See, okay. Now, after it's had a few rotations and has been thoroughly laundered, okay, you then go in there and kind of mess around, and lo and behold,
wow,
Mr. Jackson comes in.
My goodness.
So this is the Canadian inflato machine.
I think that will go over well if we could figure out how to do it in the United States for their debt ceilings.
Absolutely. This makes a fiver turn into a
A
20.
20.
Yeah,
Wow.
20. Now, these can probably be sold on the market for border bucks.
Probably.
Border pole bucks. And if you're interested in getting one of these and you get your very own inflato,
Hmm.
we recommend going to the borderpol.org/inflato website and see if you can get one of these for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, remember, only available in Canada, unfortunately. But perhaps with some licensing agreement with an American political genius, we could get this sold in the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just possible that that can be done. There is an element of tolerable dishonesty on this machine.
Yes. Just like real life.
Just like real life. So remember, inflato in Canada only.
Yeah. And maybe, just maybe, if we can come up, what do we call those? Starts with a P scheme. Yeah.
Looks like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Pyramid schemes. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've got that out of the way,
Yeah.
we had to share it. I mean, it was a public service message to our
Yes.
friends because
I'm pretty sure that that's the way most politicians think.
yeah, I mean, Americans have to understand magic happens in Canada. We can take money and inflate it and give it back to the taxpayer more than taxpayer puts in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And, only in Canada would you ever find an individual that really doesn't have a strong economic or scholastic background to be able to run the country. Then that's got to be pure magic.
it is. It is. Fairy dust included.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Not angel dust. That's a different thing.
Well, maybe they have that too, but they use a straw up their nose. I just,
Pure speculation on
pure
our
speculation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's
So anyway, we've had a chance to bash our current politicians, and
and it's not
what do
even
we want
hard.
to talk about? I'm kind of thinking that we've got to get something to do with BORDERPOL, other than the BORDERPOL Ponzi scheme to inflate money.
Border pole bucks. Well, let's see now. We need lots of border pole bucks. You're telling me that if you want to get a Nexus card, it's going to cost more border
Yes,
pole
apparently
bucks.
our trusted traveler program, when it was first online, was $50 US. And effective October 1st, that is now going up to, what did I say?
167 Canadian.
Yeah, $1.67, so 120 US. Which, they must already have their own inflato machines, because that's quite a huge jump.
Yeah, but again, I think there's probably some tolerable dishonesty there too, because part of the logic of that is that fewer people will get this card because it's more expensive. Hence, fewer people will travel. Hence, less CO2 will be generated by automobiles or transportation methods. Yeah. So if you don't live next to the border,
well, that's true. And the fact that it's costing us more and more for that fossil fuel to do the traveling, and more for the poor farmers that are using fossil fuels to grow crops, and the poor truckers that have to transport those crops to the grocery stores. Do you spend $167 on a card that will help you get easier access into the United States, or do you worry about whether you're going to be able to put a meal on the table? And I guess that's the big question. Will that have an effect on it? We're already seeing here the de facto Prime Minister, Jagmeet Singh, is already announcing that there's that $1 billion going into the school breakfast programs, which, it's all fine and dandy, but If I wanted an NDP government, I think I would have voted NDP. However, that's another issue.
Well, it's interesting that if you take money away from people at the front end, and then you who then can't afford to buy groceries, but you're going to give it back to them at the back end so the kid can have a breakfast or lunch, which otherwise they would have had at home or taken a box lunch to school because the parents could afford to buy the
Mhm.
lunch to pack to take to school.
Yeah.
So once again, our problem is solved by these guys who created it in the first place.
Yeah.
And so more tolerable dishonesty.
And I guess, while we're beating this horse to death, I sure hope that we get a few comments from viewers from other parts of the world. Are we alone living in la la land up here? Is this a phenomenon that's peculiar to Canadians? Did we find the right brand of Kool-Aid to drink? I don't know.
Well, I think that it's part of a disinformation program created by the leadership in this country, whereas in other places, particularly in the G7, you have two countries that are in de facto recession. One is Germany, and the other one is the UK. Okay,
Mhm.
and they are too busy trying to figure out how to uh, make ends meet there, whilst continuing on with their war, uh, proxy war with Russia, while they haven't got the fuel or the manpower to do it with. So the whole approach to getting people's attention somewhere else is different in here. In the U.S., of course, you have an entirely other set of circumstances, which is directly related to Orange Man and the Senile Man running against each other coming in the election. So in the case of the incumbent, you create a problem that nobody seems to want to talk about, and that is millions of people are coming into the United States and completely upending social, economic, and political systems, whilst the incumbent is talking about abortion and transgender rights. The economy is going to hell in a basket. The country is being overrun literally by millions of newcomers because you're not allowed apparently to say illegal migrant, and so they have their own level of dishonesty, which appears to be tolerable to some Americans. So they focus on niche issues that they're going to solve, while the big problems of people have no jobs, productivity is down, inflation is through the roof, crime is rampant in most urban centers. What they didn't have before in terms of racial disharmony, they got now in bucketfuls, and the list goes on and on. So you've got that. Then you have the other bunch, which doesn't seem to understand that you don't solve problems by blowing people up all over the world. And at the end of the day, the big crisis globally is associated with the incompetence of the leadership in so many of the so-called capitalist market economy countries. Let's face it. We've got a lot of very dishonest folks in leadership positions, which are tolerated at the moment because we're not over the edge quite yet, but we're getting there.
Well, I think I sent you that little link earlier on pre-production about nobody wants the whole truth anymore. I don't think, and I really don't think people could, as much as we say we want the truth, I really don't know if we could really handle the truth anymore. I don't think our psyches would not be able to handle the issues that come, and so therefore, I guess we're building up more and more of this uh, deniability, this whatever you want to call it, and it becomes acceptable. Everybody knows it's a fib, but the other side
Well,
of that,
let's look just at the fellow that runs Canada. He says that immigration to Canada has grown at a rate far beyond what Canada has been able to absorb, and saying that temporary immigration has caused so much pressure in our communities in relation to housing. Excuse me, but who is the genius that is the architect of immigration that's grown at a rate far beyond what Canada's been able to absorb? This is not something that just kind of happens symbiotically, you
No.
know. So I mean, please, it's ridiculous, to even. But you've got ridiculous people running countries. He's one of the 7 ridiculous guys. Used to be a cowboy movie, The Magnificent Seven.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got the dim-witted 7 or the crackpot 7 at the moment, because none of the ones in the G7 gives you any kind of real confidence as to what they're doing. I mean, just go down the list, and I can guarantee you anybody who's watching us from any other GC7 countries are going, wow, think about it. So this is where we are at. It's and when you look at things that happen over the Easter weekend, I mean, we were saying in pre-production, what is this thing about Transgender Rights Day that had to be proclaimed by Biden? It's totally disrespecting Christians everywhere. This is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
This is absurd. What is,
And I guess that comes down to the fact that by and large, we're very ambivient. Pick on the people that aren't really going to raise an issue with or a big ruckus with. Because I myself, I don't want to sound fanatic or racist or anything like that, but if that particular proclamation had been done on Ramadan, or pick another
well,
religious holiday, there would have been hue and cry in the papers and on the news broadcasts, and as it is, there's just a few people who were shocked and chagrined, to take another famous quote,
chagrined, yeah,
that this happened, but really it hasn't made any big news.
On Easter Sunday in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, they had these Palestinian demonstrators interrupting the mass. Now, they were dragged out of there fairly quickly by the parishioners, but it seemed, well, that's okay. But imagine if you had done that in a mosque in the middle of their service. How would that go over? This is what I'm saying. We're in a very strange trajectory here as a society.
Yeah. Well, I guess going with your theme, we've lost respect. It's okay to disagree, but it doesn't mean you should disrespect somebody. We may choose to have different voting patterns, whether I happen to be a conservative or a liberal, or talking to somebody who happens to be a Green or an NDP. You can discuss politics, but you should be able to still respect that person at the end of the day. Still go out for a beer with them or whatever. And that to me seems to be where we've kind of lost ourselves. And is it the fact that our governments are just totally oblivious to the fact? Again, to pick on our poor leader, who's now the second highest paid politician in the G7.
Yes.
At I think what it's $405,000 a year. Last I looked, the average Canadian salary was $59,000 a year. Now, I'm never good at math, but that is at least 3 or possibly 4 times under what the illustrious leader is making. And yet they're the ones that are standing up and telling us that we've got your back, we're doing this for you, we're taking your money, but we're giving you more. I don't know. it becomes a vicious cycle. And I guess to me, it boils down to respect. I used to have a lot of respect for politicians. I mean, there were some great politicians, whether you liked them for their party colors or not, they at least had the ability to put forward dreams, make you think that things are possible. And to me, I'm thinking right now of President John Kennedy, putting a man on the moon when it wasn't even thought about, and everybody worked to that goal, and by gosh, we got a man on the moon. Uh, I don't see those kind of people there with that kind of charisma to be able to do that. These are the kind of guys that would say, Bob, water's wet, and if you jump in, you're going to get soaked. And I'm going to be thinking, yeah, well, right. I don't think that's true. No, the sky is blue. No, it's not really. If you're telling me it's blue, I know it's not blue. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I do. You're going down the rabbit hole they want you to go down. This is
true.
this is
Yeah.
part of the plan here, okay? Because what you're saying is exactly what other people think. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, where are we going with this? And whether you're talking social or economic or political, it's always the same thing. You're wrong, we're right. And even though we told you the sky is green, you better believe it.
Mhm.
Period. That's the essence of the misinformation program that they continually turn around and say others are employing. So if you question it, you're the person who needs to be challenged what they're
Yeah, that's
saying.
true. And
Okay?
again, out here in particular, on the very, very left coast,
Yes.
uh, our provincial government is really pushing this whole thing to the point of being involved in everything. Of course, by 2030 in British Columbia, you will not be able to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle. It must be electric, even though we don't have the infrastructure to support that.
Well, let me go on record as saying I don't think so.
Well, I'm thinking that too, but
Yeah,
we also have this government that is telling us now that if you build these 4 or 5 cookie cutter buildings, there will be less government interference in getting those buildings built.
that's nonsense. And you know it's
Well,
nonsense. Once again, tolerable dishonesty.
mhm.
Government never gets out of the way of growth for themselves.
No.
When is the last time you saw any government at any level shrink, literally shrink, or get out of people's way? I don't care if it's municipal, provincial, federal, state for our American friend. They don't. When they grow, they just grow and grow and grow. They're a virus, basically,
Yeah.
that feeds on the host, which is the taxpayer. And the famous saying is, "I'm from the government. I'm here to help you." They use this all the time, directly or indirectly. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, until you run out of money, that's the only time government collapses.
Mhm.
When you can't pay all these people to push paper around, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what we've turned into, an entire continent, if not a G7 full of paper pushers, because we produce nothing anymore of value. But we're sticking our tongues out at the at Chinese and other countries that are still making stuff.
Widgets. Yeah.
Okay, we don't make stuff anymore. We talk about, the empire of the G7 is reached its climax probably in 2008. I was reading of an economist who said, everything was doing well until the so-called economic collapse in 2008, which we never recovered from.
Mhm.
Okay, 2008 was a huge hole filled with bogus paper to save the banks. Okay, through all, because they were too big to fail. And then along comes COVID, and they took an entire world, not just a country, but a whole world, and conned them into going home and staying home, if not for weeks, for months, for a year. Okay.
Mhm.
You basically overnight took 50% of the workforce and told them to stay home. Okay. Some of those people never went back to work. Some of those
Mhm.
industries never went back to work. Some of
Mhm.
those products never came back online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You lost a generation of kids who didn't go to school for 2 years, literally.
Yeah.
Okay. You have massive growth in mental illness on across the board and all kinds of uh, 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 events that prove it, from shootings to the excesses in so-called cultural uh, activities, where we had Hollywood putting on movies that are so ridiculous and no one watches them anymore. This is where we got to. I mean, you talk about the rabbit hole. So, our economy as a G7 group is waning.
Yeah.
Okay. We gave away all our ability to make stuff after 2008, basically. That's it. Okay.
Well, that's true. And I guess giving all that away, misinformation that people are buying, I guess there's still the big misinformation out in the rest of the world that the streets and avenues of North America in particular must be lined with gold because people are still flocking here.
No, you see, I'm going to take a different track on it. I think those people are coming here because they're paid to come here. They are being accommodated by forces that want to see the decline, the complete destruction of the market-based economies of Canada, US, and other countries. This migration thing is happening throughout the G7 countries. No one is migrating to Africa. No one is migrating to Asia. No one is migrating to Russia or India or Brazil. Okay, they're all coming to places where they're being essentially facilitated, both at the political level, because everyone appears to have turned their backs and said, "Oh, I don't see these millions of people here. I don't know how they got here." Okay. And then you've got the George Soros WEF crowd who seems to think that that's how you're going to solve the world's problems, by putting more people into poverty. But it's interesting that it's only going to countries that actually generated any wealth post Second World War. Okay.
And I guess the other side of that too is that those WEF people, it's never going to affect their bottom line either. So
They're not missing any meals.
no.
Okay. And
Well,
another.
they might, Tom, they might be cutting down from their 4 or 5 meals a day to maybe just 3 to show
Yeah,
that they're normal.
I
But
know, I know. Just to put a fine point on it, here's my other prop. What we're talking about. You see that? All right.
yeah, sort of.
This is a 3/4 inch brass tap
Spigot.
spigot. Thank you. It's a spigot. It is available at your local hardware store here for the princely sum of $13.95. Made of brass and made in China. Apparently, we can't even make these things anymore. Okay. This is probably worth $1 or $2, maybe.
Well, and part of that cost that's going in there is got to be the carbon taxes that are in there to, the factories that have to melt the brass and make the brass. And
You think the Chinese are worried about carbon tax?
well, it's the import that comes on that, right?
Okay.
Because I'm sure there
I
must
mean,
be
these
some kind
things,
of
they're
tax
pumping
built
these
into
things
that.
out by the billions.
Oh, I know, but
And they don't have one of these.
no, not yet. But you watch, there will be.
The part that most people don't grasp because they're being lied to tolerably all the time is that our standard of living is declining and has been declining precipitously since COVID.
Mhm.
And with the spanner went into the works in 2008, as I said earlier. And until about 2020, so that's 4 years ago, the G7 GDP was the same level as what we now know as BRICS. And now we are in second place collectively to BRICS. This is not good. Okay. And you
Well,
can't blow up your competitors with nuclear bombs because you're not productive anymore and you're wasting your time on crazy things like we do here in the G7. Just put aside the wars that are going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine, Russia. When we spend time debating on transgender issues ad nauseum, in the meanwhile, there are people who haven't got food to eat, but we create all these insane programs. You got to know there's something sick going on here.
mm,
Sorry to be so down, but I mean, this is a fact of life. The average person does not worry about the niche stuff. They worry about whether they can have a roof over their head, food on the table, a job to have to pay for all those things,
very
and feel
true.
safe walking down the street. All this
Mm,
other stuff is background noise. That's about 1 to 1.5% of the population's interest directly. Okay, period, full stop. And all these screwballs who think that our pals to the south are going to win an election on that, they need to get their head out of their backsides, because the average schmo in the U.S. could care less about those issues. Okay, this might make it on MSNBC, and there goes, oh, you're just a bunch of conservatives going on. No, this is real life. I'm quite sure that the vast majority of people watching this do not sit around the dinner table worrying about those niche issues.
well, by and large, yeah,
Okay.
that's assuming that
So
they have a dinner table and there is a meal to eat. Yeah.
precisely.
Yeah.
And the old systems that we have in place are simply not resilient enough anymore to put up with the competition that we're facing
Mhm.
from the global south, from China, from Brazil, from Russia. These people are nobodies 20 years ago. And now, we've given away the shop. And now we whine about it. And let's just blow them up. That'll solve the problem. Trouble is that they're not just a bunch of guys running around in the desert in sandals anymore. These other guys you want to blow up have the same technology, if not better technology, to blow us up.
Mhm. But I guess the other side of
We
that
got
we
a minute to
I
go here.
consider a bit positive. If
Shoot.
they become the go-to nations, will people flood their shores?
that's I'll put money on that ain't going to happen. Okay. I don't think you'll see boats washing up on the west side of Africa looking for asylum.
Well,
Anyway,
maybe you never know. Who knows?
yeah.
I see we're down under 1 minute, and I'm probably sure we got people that are sitting on the edge of the warm bathtubs now. But
All right. Well, don't forget
anyhow,
Inflato. Oh, look, it's still there. Oh,
ooh,
next week, Bob.
we gotta find some good stuff.
Yeah, fine, great stuff.
All righty,
Have a good one.
and you too.
Bye.
Bye.